All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Carrie Gates here in Huntsville. I'm with the RMS PMO, the program manager over the RMS program. And so today we're going to be giving you some training on RMS. It's more of an advanced level training. We held more of a beginner level yesterday. If you were not able to attend, but you would like to be able to see what we went over, I have posted the slides to the RMS, the PMO SharePoint site. And then if we need to send them to you, we can, but please check there first under the Shared Documents tab. I can put the link in the chat if need be. These slides are also going to be posted there. I will get them posted during the training. I have a copy, I believe, that I put up there yesterday, but they were draft. So either way, these will be put up there. Again, I'll put the link in the chat. As far as future trainings, we have the dates and links and everything posted, or we try to post them on the RMS website. So please check the homepage there for any upcoming sessions. That includes the brown bag sessions. Again, we held one of those yesterday. The slides for that are also posted on the SharePoint site. But again, we just want to appreciate or say thank you. Appreciate all of you dialing in today for the training. And if you could hold your questions till the end, or please put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to try to answer those. But we would prefer to wait till the end to answer all of your questions, as some of your questions may be answered as we're going through this. So again, thank you for joining. And Paul, Benita, I'll turn it over to your team to get started.
Hello, everyone. We're glad you were able to attend, and we hope you enjoy our training. The advanced training is going to have a couple of different voice leaders as teachers, not just one. So bear with us as we switch control from one person to the other. The advanced modules in RMS often require someone with specific skills, so we will have to use our best person for those jobs. Paul's going to go ahead and get us started, and we thank you again for attending.
All right. Okay, so I'm actually going to hand this over to Boz. Michael Bosley, he is our construction SME, and he is going to take over the first part of the training. We're going to see how far we get. Once we get to about the middle part of the training, that's where the meat is going to be, where we cover finances. We'll try to get through that as quickly as possible because we want to get it from start to finish. So like Carrie said, if you have questions, go ahead and type them out. We'll keep an eye on them, do our best to answer them. But to make sure that we get through this slide deck, we're going to do what we can to cover everything. And like Carrie said, your question may be answered. We're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to try to be as detailed as possible. But if you do have a question, type them out. We are recording everything, and we'll get to them. All right, Boz, go ahead. Thank you.
Today, we're going to be talking about the RMS Advanced Training. The goal of this training is to cover how to perform some of the most common advanced functions in RMS. This training is not meant to cover business processes, policies, or regulations that govern contract administration. If you have any questions concerning that, we ask you to defer those to your local POC, to the PMO, or to headquarters. The topics that we're going to be covering today: the RMS main menus. We're going to be talking about adding CLINs, adding in pay activities, process for modifications. We're going to touch on RMS schedules, and as well as import and export, and we will spend a few minutes talking about RMS closeout. So the learning objectives for the menu items. We're going to go over the local office, the district office, and the district library. We'll also be talking about system libraries, summary reports. We'll talk very briefly about RMS GIS, and we'll talk about RMS staff. So when you go into RMS, you have your choice of options at the top there. The first one we're going to talk about is the local office. When you click on the local office, it will open up the office tree for your district. And once you've highlighted your office, you can go through the little blue sub-menu items at the bottom of the screen. So for office description, this will be used for setting up a new office. Most of the time, all offices have already been set up, so you probably won't need to go into this screen too often, other than to add in new office managers or focal points as staff is changed. For the information that needs to be added to this screen, we ask you to defer to your local policy. The next button is called Office Policy. This screen is where you set up how your quality assurance reporting, how your quality assurance reports are going to be locked. They can either be set up to where they are locked as soon as the day is done. You can set up a certain number of days after the report has been completed, and then the report will be locked, or they can be kept open indefinitely. The next menu item is Office Documents. This houses specific local work document templates that are specific to the one office you're talking about. We ask that if you have any further need for this menu, that you contact the help desk for further support, as this is creating Word documents, and those can be a little tricky sometimes. The next button is called the Mod Routing Slip. Some districts use this, some districts do not. If you are a district that is using this, this is where you can put in any notes or how you want the mod routing slip to function. The next button is the interface schedule. In RMS 2.38, this button actually had a lot more functionality than it does now, because we could actually set the times that the district office would download from CEFMS and download from P2. With advances in network and computers, having to set this by each district is no longer necessary. The next button is called Office User Entries. This is where we enter in information about letterheads. This is where, and reply to attention. This information is used later on in RMS when you're creating custom reports and custom letters. The next menu item is Local Office Milestones. As each office has unique customers and unique work, so too can each office have unique milestones. Now these milestones can be set up and will be used as under the Schedule tab.
Hey, Boz, we're getting some background notification noise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute all and then have you unmute yourself. So give me 5 seconds here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to mute all, and then you'll have to unmute, Boz. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Boom.
As with every screen in RMS that has the blue tiles across the top, you can sort through the information that is shown on the screen by either all events, those just related to design, those related to construction, post-construction, so on. The next menu item is the Local Office Contract Archive. This screen shows you the offices. This screen will show you all the contracts that have been archived for the specific office that you're talking about. Next button is called P2 Projects. This button is actually under construction. And as we develop it, we will notify users. Now we've completed what's under the office, local office. Now we'll move on to what's under the district office. Under district office, you have a button called District Office. This is where information is set up for the actual district that you're working in. As said before, these districts don't usually change too much, so these should already be set up for you. The only time that anybody would have to go in to enter information would be to change the office manager for that district. Next is position titles. These titles are used for signature blocks of signing documents. These can be, you can add, edit, or delete any of the items in here. We do ask that you try to make sure that you don't have too many that are duplicates. Next button is called the Contract User Roles. This is where the user roles can be set up for each individual user for which parts of RMS that they would have access to. Now, this is normally something that a district administrator would be setting up. This isn't something that normal users can come into and change their roles. Next button is called District Policy, and there's 3 tabs across that. First, we'll talk about District Policy. This is where you can set up the number of copies that you receive for SF30s, and you can also set up your small business administration contracting goals. Next is Mod Policy. This is where you can set up requirements for every modification, the number of days that each plan or specs or estimate are due after request. And you can also set up when the contractor has to sign modifications, as well as how many days. And under submittal policy, this is where you can set up your review period in the number of calendar days. What is set up here will be used throughout the submittal package. Or sorry, what is set up here will be used throughout the submittal register. The next button on there is called Prime Contractors. This is where you can add, edit, or delete your prime contractors. A prime contractor will have to be entered into RMS before they can have access to RMS CM. The next button is the Fiscal Year Baseline Placement. This is where you can add, edit, and delete the district fiscal year placement projections for each fiscal year. Now, as this is normally used for budgeting purposes, this is a menu that is restricted to district admins. The next button is called Dredge Names. If you're a civil works district that does a lot of dredging, this is where you can enter information about each of your dredges that you're operating. And under District Office, we also have a tab called Archive Contracts. This provides a listing of all the archive contracts for the district. Now we come to the System Library. The System Library holds the list of values that are used throughout RMS. The System Library is only maintained by the RMS Center, so any changes to information presented here has to be done through the RMS Center. So the first button is called the RMS Asset Store. This is a way for one district to create documents and then be able to share them across districts. You can do custom reports, custom queries, document templates, standard text. You can share user roles. If you see something in here that you would like to use, please contact a district administrator. Next button is called the Fund Types. This screen houses all the fund types that are used throughout USA's construction. If you want to include them in the lookup, you can just check the little checkbox over there and they'll be added into the drop-down lookups for other screens. The next button is called Program Types. Again, this houses all the program types that USACE handles, and if to be included in the lookup, they need to be a little check in the checkbox. Next menu is called Contract Status Codes. These codes are used for updating the contract status. And we also have the primary delay codes that are also used for updating the contract status. Next, we get into the mod reason codes. These are the codes that are used when creating modifications. And we list the agency codes, which are also used in modifications. Under System Library, we have the specification sections. This houses the master format 1995, 2004, and 2014 specification sections. Under the PD² CLIN units, this lists out all the units of measure that are used for setting up your activities. Under the category codes and units is the information used for 1354 creation. You have the Army category codes, the Navy, and the Air Force. Next, we have a list of the RMS reports. These are the reports that are maintained and supported by the RMS Support Center. The next button is called Query Definitions. This is used to develop and maintain the database queries that are created by the RMS Support Center. And these queries can be used to filter information on other reports. However, this is usually reserved for district administrators. If you do have interest in this section, please contact your district administrator. The next button is called the CEFMS batch download times. This just gives you a listing of, for each district, the kickoff hour for the download from CEFMS. Next, we go into summary reports. So these are all the reports that are at a summary level for a district. A lot of them are the same as contract reports. However, the main difference is that contract reports only gives you that data for that contract, whereas the summary reports will give you the information across every contract for the district. RMS GIS. This is a pretty good screen. This is a pretty good menu, but it is constantly being updated. You can select whether you want to view your offices or your contracts. Again, you click on the blue tiles and it will further sort the information. The next button is called User Settings. This is a local cache settings and user preferences. So under User Preferences, this is where you can change how RMS operates when you enter into a contract. You can have it go right to the main screen, or you can have it automatically go to whatever last module or submodule you were in. RMS Mobile, still on here, but it is currently not being used due to security reasons. It may or may not come back in another form. Stay tuned for that. And the last button is RMS staff. This provides a listing of all the staff members for a district. This is where the district admin can go in and add and edit the users that are assigned to a district. You can even go into your own staff listing to see what permissions you have. However, you cannot change your own permissions. Only a district admin can do that. And that is the end of going through the menus. Are there any questions on the menus that haven't already been answered in the chat?
For recording purposes, I'm just going to answer a question. Someone asked under local office milestone, if it's grayed out, how can an admin edit milestones? Currently, right now, the only milestones that are allowed to be edited are the local office milestones, not a system or a district milestone.
My guess is talking about that selection screen, right? Where it looks like you should be able to check those boxes, but it's not letting anyone check those boxes. So I'll take an action and look into that and see if that wasn't the original intent compared to 2.38. But, you know, I think it's probably been that way for a long, long time. But we'll look into it and I'll get back to you on that.
With the RMS staff screen, checkboxes are grayed out. That is correct. That is supposed to be that way. Those checkboxes are just there for your reference so that you can see them. If you want to make any edits to any staff's register,
yeah, you're correct. So yeah, so when we were developing RMS 3.0, you know, the ask was make sure it has all of 2.38's functionality, but at the same time, we were using code that allows us to do some things differently. Those, you know, got to go through approval processes and whatnot. And it may be that it just wasn't copied over, but we'll look into it. But yeah, that anything to reduce the clicks in RMS is kind of a focus these days, right? So that's something we want to focus on. So I'll look into that. We'll see what we can find out. Last call for questions, and we'll hurry on to finances.
So yes, we're going to move on over to the Finances tab. We're going to give a short overview. We'll talk about some submodules. Then we're going to go into contract finances. We'll hit on how to deal with CLINs, dealing with pay activities, and we'll spend some time on changes and modifications. So under the Finances manual, anything pertaining to funds is found under this module. And this is where you download from CEFMS. And this is where you can also deal with your contract changes, modifications, progress payments, contractor claims. Unlike other modules, if there is a mistake or error done in the finances, it can relate to many hours of being fixed and delayed payments. Our main caution is if you do not fully understand what's going on in the finances, please don't try to wing it. Contact your district administrator or contact the help desk. If the contractor schedule type is set to NAS on the government side, it can be found under Contract Setup, Submittals Schedule. The Progress Payment submodule will allow the contractor to import the pay request via SDEF. Getting into finances, let's just list the submodules, contract finances, award claims, pay activities. To download from CEFMS, you have to make sure that the contract number in RMS matches what's been entered in CEFMS. The biggest or the most common error that I have seen when entering things into this screen, somebody in CEFMS will put N/A, and when you enter into RMS, they will put in NA for delivery item or delivery number. That means that RMS is not looking at the same contract as CEFMS, so you'd have to put in N/A in RMS. The contract finances screen shows what RMS is anticipating to obligate against the contract. It's like writing a check that hasn't cleared the bank, and as for intents purposes, CEFMS is considered the bank. CEFMS work items are either created in P2, which in turn are created in CEFMS, or they're created directly in CEFMS. For the work items, funding accounts are set up for making progress payments to the contractor and tracking available funds. So there are some tabs there across the top: CEFMS finances, contract funding, funding balances, and obligation balances. We're not going to talk too much about project funding because that is a option that is not used very often. It's when you're having a project level funded contract, and a majority of the contracts found in RMS are not project level funded. So as always, we've got the little blue boxes across there where you can see all your finances, or you can just look at appropriations. You can just see the funding accounts. You can view your PRNCs, so on and so forth. For today's training, however, a lot of the finance screens are not going to show real CEFMS information. We're going to be using what's known as non-CEFMS funding accounts. So at the top there's another button right next to CEFMS download called CEFMS Cleanup. So this button will go through and download again from CEFMS and delete any financial financial items from RMS that are not found in CEFMS. We recommend that you proceed with caution with doing this, as it can lead to some financial errors that would be hard to recover from. If you do find that your finances are not matching what you think they should be, please contact the help desk before taking any further action. So after contract award, the financial data from CEFMS is imported into RMS. This includes the appropriation data, the funding accounts, the commitments, and obligations. During the CEFMS download, RMS goes into the funding registers and downloads the appropriation data. And it goes into the funding accounts and gets the authorized amounts for each of the funding accounts. Approved pending changes are deducted from the available CEFMS funds, and unfunded pending changes are included to show whether or not there are sufficient funds available. The next tab across top is called Contract Funding. This will show you the information about your funding accounts, and this is where we add in non-CEFMS or CEFMS funding accounts if they did not download from CEFMS. The next tab across top is called Project Funding. Again, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but this is where you would update information about a project level funded contract. Next screen is called Funding Balances. This just gives you a little more information about each funding account and how the money is set up. And the last screen is your obligation balances. This shows you additional information about how each obligation was set up against each funding account. And as I said before, because we're using non-CEFMS, this is going to look a lot different than it would be on your screens if you're getting real information from CEFMS. If you have any questions about what you're seeing in your contract, please contact the help desk. Okay, now that all your finances have been entered, the next step is to go in and start adding in your award CLINs. The award CLINs can be any number of CLINs that are associated with the contract. You can have 1 CLIN, you could have 200 CLINs. It all depends on what's set up on the bid schedule. But no matter how many you have, at the end, there should be no variances between award contract and award CLINs. When you're adding a new CLIN, you have the option of adding in a new parent CLIN or adding in a new priced sub-CLIN. A priced parent CLIN can be associated with information sub-CLINs. Each associated information sub-CLIN can be linked to a different obligation line item, and it can be you can need a CLIN to fund multiple funding sources. Price sub-CLINs can only be funded with a single funding source. And as we mentioned here, this is DFAR rules. This is not something that RMS came up with. If you have any questions about how to set up price CLIN fundings, please again contact the help desk or speak to your district administrator. So now that you've clicked on the add button to add in a new award CLIN and you selected if you're going to do a parent CLIN or a sub CLIN, you'll come to this screen where you add in the description of the CLIN, you'll add in your units of measure, and you'll add in the award amount. Once that's entered in, you'll do the little checkbox there to say that CLIN pricing is complete, and then you'll click on funding. The funding button will bring up any obligations that are associated with the CLIN. We'll bring up all the obligations associated with the contract, so it can be now associated to the CLIN. And again, make sure there are no variances before moving on to the screen. And this slide here just provides a little more information about the difference between a price parent CLIN and information parent CLIN. I won't bore you with the details. You can read this. If you have any questions after going through this, please again contact the help desk. The next button on the screen is called the current CLIN. So this is a data grid that reflects your award CLINs plus any CLINs that have been added via modification. When you select a CLIN, the box down below called CLIN history will show up. If it's an award CLIN, it will say award CLIN. If it's a modification CLIN, it will show the mod number that the CLIN was added under. Okay, now you've added your CLINs. Now you need to go in and add your pay activities. Now the government is in charge of entering and managing the CLINs at the contract level, and the contractor edits and controls the pay activities. And each activity must be assigned to a CLIN. Now a CLIN can have one or it can have multiple activity IDs attached to it. But no matter how many you use, the sum of the activities must balance out that CLIN. A payment cannot be processed unless the activities are in balance with the CLIN items. So this is an example of what the pay activity screen would look like. And again, across the top, we've got the little blue menu buttons. You can click on all activities. And if you happen to have activities that were not assigned to a CLIN, you could click on that button and that would show you the remaining activities that still needed to be assigned. From this screen, you can see the activity number, the activity ID, the description of that activity, which CLIN it's associated to, and the amount of that activity. This can be very helpful when your contractor is using SDEF and they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of activities. The next button across the top there is the CLINS. This will show you which CLINs. This will show you all the CLINs. The CLINs, the number of activities assigned to the CLIN, the current contract amount, and then the sum of all the activities. And we again have all the blue buttons across the top that will further sort that information. If you happen to have unbalanced CLINs, it would give you that information. Next tab, contractors. This tab shows you which contractors are assigned to which activities. As you can see here, we've got 13 contractors, but only 3 of them have been assigned to pay activities. And we've got 10 contractors that have not been linked to a pay activity. This would be something that you would need to get back to the contractor if they're using SDF to update that information, as well as any features of work that have been assigned to an activity. Having contractors and features of work not assigned to an activity is not necessarily going to prevent you from processing any payments. It is just a way to help the contractor show the government where the money is being utilized, so that we can make better decisions and so that we can run custom reports to see how things are being spent. So why do we need to link it to activities? Because it helps the QA in the evaluation of the pay request. Because activities can be linked to submittals, user schools, transfer property, installed property, QC tests, so on and so forth. If there are any variances in loading the NSA schedule, the contractor must change the schedule of activities and or add a CLIN due to modification and then reload into RMS. If there is a variance, the contractor will not be able to prepare their pay request. So going back through the screens a little more, like I said, you can filter the data, and on the bottom of the screen there, it gives you the CLIN contract balances for every activity that has been selected. And we'll go through these because this is a little more information. If you were to go into an activity, this is the information that you would see. So you have activity number, the subcontractor that's assigned to, the feature of work that it's assigned to, the work category code. If you're using a dredge, it would be the information there. And it also shows information about which CLIN that activity is assigned to. So you see this activity is linked to the amount only CLIN, and you can enter the amount of the activity. The quantity is considered to be 1. So this is a CLIN that's based on, this would be a CLIN that is based on value. Okay, so financial balancing for modifications. Any change to a contract value due to modification will require a change to activities to balance out the contract again. The government will add in a new CLIN due to the modification and will create a temporary pay activity to equal the CLIN amount. The contractor will then go in and edit this new pay activity, or they will create additional pay activities. No matter what they do, the amounts must balance to the new CLIN amount. For credit modifications, the government may reduce an existing CLIN, and the contractor then has to adjust the activities by reducing the quantities of the existing activities. Now we're going to go in and talk about manually adding an activity ID. This would be if your contractor is not using SDEF, or if you are adding in a new activity for a modification. So to click a new activity, you would just simply click on Add, and it will pull up the next pop-up screen where you would put in the next activity number. RMS keeps a running total of activities, so it would pull up the next activity number and just add it in there. And you would click on OK. If you needed to edit the activity number to make it unique, you could do so. Okay, the next step would be to tie the activity to a subcontractor and then to a feature of work. You could add in, then you would add in the description, or you could add in the description and then tie it to the subcontractor and feature of work. You'd add in the work category. You need to make sure you put in the activity amount and then which CLIN this is assigned to. And you're done with that, click the back button to submit. So if you needed to edit an activity, you would highlight the activity and click on edit, and then you could go in and make any edits that you needed to the information that was on the screen. You can edit the subcontractor, the feature of work, the duration, phase, area, work category, and you can also edit in the CLIN assignments and pricing. And if you need to delete an activity, you highlight the delete, or highlight the activity, and then you press the delete. Sorry about that, looks like I got muted again. You have the option of being able to delete multiple records or delete all activities. And either one of these will bring up the confirm pop-up screen. It is not recommended that you go in and delete activities without first talking to the contractor, as this will greatly affect the finances of the contract and may prevent payment. To delete multiples, all you simply do is enable delete multiples, and it will bring up a little checkbox. You select the checkbox for all the activities you want to delete, and then you hit delete selected records. And if you're going to delete all, you select delete all, and they will all be deleted. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little break here. I've been talking for 45 minutes. Are there any questions that have not been answered in the chat on pay activities? Why don't we go ahead and take 5? let everybody get something to drink and visit facilities if they need to. And I think we're going to change out presenters.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks, Buzz. Thank you very much for going over finances. We are currently at slide 82 in the PowerPoint slide presentation. So we'll take a quick 5-minute break. Go grab water, do what you got to do. We'll come back and then we'll resume in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
All right, we're about ready to start our second session.
All right. Hey, whoever was just talking, I don't know if that was James or who I heard, but
It was.
I just wanted to mention real quick, I did put the SharePoint link in the chat a couple of different times for where you can find the slides that we're going over today, as well as the slides from yesterday for both the beginner session as well as the brown bag that we had yesterday. And then if you happen to click the home button on that same SharePoint site, it'll take you to the announcements, which is where you can find some information there, as well as to the future sessions for training, as well, of course, like I mentioned earlier, the RMS website. But this SharePoint is the PMO SharePoint. We try to post some information on there, such as the newsletters as well. But anyways, the link is in the chat. If you don't see it and you need it, please just request it in the chat and I'll send it to you again.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with our second session here. My name is James McGuire. I am a database administrator and programmer at RMS for about 20 years. Bosley did a very good job, so hopefully I can match that or attempt to get more information to you. We have contract changes up here, and in the contract changes area, the basic document that runs everything is that basic change document, the BCD. Change request is generated when there's a change in the contract, and that basic change document will have the complete scope of this change. The BCD describes the change, the reason it's necessary, the initiated estimated cost, time impact, and all of that can be set within the screens in RMS. It's also used to evaluate the AE liability, design errors, emissions, etc. There's also a Claims Disputes tab that was added. The selection screen will show the various contract changes that are available for the contract. These need to be created and included in modifications in order to be applied against the contract. When you highlight the row at the top, below will give some of the detail that is included in that contract change. When you click Add for a contract change, there are various types of contract changes that can be added. There's a single part change request, which is the most common. You can also add the first part of a multiple part change request. That means that the change request will be followed by other parts. Then, of course, you can add the subsequent parts. And then you can also add a weather modification type of change request, which includes some other features. Inside of the change request, the first thing that you must do is to set the reason code. That's a very important. You can't save the change request without it. This Inception tab includes some basic information: the request title, modification required date. You cannot enter a date canceled or else it will not be applied. Clicking on the Description tab gives further information that will be included in the BCD document and other reports. This will allow you to enter the description of the change in drawings, specifications, and the necessity for the change. You can give a description there. The Status Funding tab will allow you to check various checkboxes that will allow you to enter dates for different things, such as the BCD, plans required, specs, government, estimate required, proposal required, negotiation required. Once those checkboxes are checked, then those dates are mandatory to be entered. You can also select which amount that is estimated there is included for that change request down below. Next, on to the contract modifications. Contract modifications are a place where you can include these change requests that were just created. Change requests must be completed before you generate the modification. You can technically create the modification, but you will not be able to include any data or progress with that contract modification without the change requests. So when you click in the modification, you can actually add the change requests within that modification. So it says here to use the latest contracting division modification numbering system. These things are important. If you do not number them correctly, PCF, the paperless contract file, will reject these modifications. Every once in a while, people wonder why their paperless contract files are not making it across and they come back with an error. This is one of those areas. It must have a mod number that meets the specifications. So this is outside of our capability to change. This is something that is set in stone. There's also an export button, of course, that you can export all of those rows, just like most of the screens in RMS. So on the SF30-1 tab, the first tab of the modification, this is where you can add the change requests to the modification. And then you can add the CLINs that are affected by that. And down below, you'll have the funding accounts so that you can put the funding on the appropriate funding account numbers and disperse the funds as you see fit. So it says here two things are accomplished. It's selecting the change request and then also editing the contract line item. You can also set that amount down below on the funding account. The SF30-2 tab will include information that will appear upon the SF30 report. The basic modification number is that formatted number that we talked about before. It will change based upon the type of contract, if it's a delivery order or not. And there's information about the appropriation data. Requisition number is typically the PRNC number and will be automatically populated by RMS. The accounting and appropriation data memo field is an optional field. The SF30 block 13 again will be included on the SF30 report. It says to select the manner in which the modification is being issued and select the appropriate FAR clauses from the lookup provided. These are in a system menu that was just covered earlier in RMS. And the user can enter two FAR clauses. It's recommended to group the type of mods together, differing site conditions, construction changes, user requested changes, etc. Also, indicate whether or not the contractor will be required to sign the modification in the checkbox down below. The SF30 block 14 is where you can enter the modification title. And if you're selecting more than one change request, which is possible on that previous tab, then you can verify the title of the change reflects the basic scope of each item. Then the SF30-3 tab includes block 14 continued. The first two memo fields are for the entry of optional notes on the contract price and time, and remaining memo fields for comments related to the change in the schedule and closing statement. The closing statement should be selected from the lookup, and the standard closing statements can be found in the district library under standard text. Then there's the block 15A for the contractor signature, 16A for the CO or ACO signature. So the ACO can sign inside RMS 3. These things are all allowed to be digitally signed and included in a modification package later. Then we have the Release Mod tab. The modification will not be applied to the contract until this is all completed and the final checkbox is checked on this screen. So if a modification's amount is not applied to the current contract amount, then you'll check this screen to see whether or not the funding has all been set up and everything has been completed. So after the PRNC is committed, the sent to contractor date is the date the SF30 is sent to the contractor up above. The government signature date is the date that the ACO signs the SF30. Obligation approval in CEFMS is done after the ACO signs the modification. And note, it says new changes will be coming that require the modification to be completed in SPS first, and actually it will be the ACWS system, which will generate the obligation initiation in CEFMS. And the day is coming too where we will no longer initiate this SF30, but it will be totally done within ACWS and come down from them. And they will control more of the aspects of it, but we will still interface with them. So that's all under development currently. And check the modification complete when the SF30 is signed by the ACO or CO, and the next step is to assign a pay activity for the mod. A further step that is in here is the funding in the middle. So once you complete that, you actually enter in the obligation amounts here so that it includes the amount of the modification. Now you can have modifications for a negative or a positive amount. So it says that here on this next screen, the obligation amount, and check. So it says enter that and check the modification funded with the obligations in CEFMS box. When you indicate the modification is complete by checking the box at the bottom, you'll get the pop-up message that tells you that the activities will also need to be balanced to include these before a final pay request is done. This can be done by the contractor, oftentimes by the SDEF imports. When they know that a change is happening to the contract, they will have those amounts changed. The bottom line is the pay activities will need to balance with the new changes to the CLIN, which is on that first SF30 tab. For a manual schedule, click Add to add a new activity due to the modification. A contractor will add the new activity in their manual schedule. And then, as I mentioned, this is normally done through a NAS schedule import, through that SDEF import. On the pay activity screen, you can enter in new CLINs or assign to an existing CLIN and change the activity amounts, add new activities for those CLINs, etc. The bottom line is everything needs to be balanced. Once a modification is applied to the contract, the current contract amount is changed if there's an amount to the contract and it's not just a time modification. Then those activities will need to reflect those amounts and offset the CLINs, and the variance will need to be 0 here. If the variance is not 0, you will not be able to proceed in with a pay request. Finally, there's the modification package screen. A mod package includes various elements of this modification documents grouped together, so that way you can submit them all in one package to PCF. When the mod package is completed, all those documents that are entered will be sent to PCF if everything looks good. Obviously, if there's a bad modification number or something, then it will not send to PCF. So here's a document package within a modification. And finally, this again is the outside of the modifications where you see all of the modifications for the contract. And when you click on the grid up above, it will give you the details down below. Next, we have claims and disputes. The contractor claims, REAs and claims are added in the contractor claims dispute submodule in our tract. If field office receives an REA claim from the contractor, the field office enters the data and keeps the data current under the claims disputes submodule. Note the contractor claims report found under the contract reports. The type of claim can be selected.
Hey, James.
Yes.
Before you get too far into claims and disputes, and I'm sorry I didn't stop you a slide ago, let's go back and answer some of those questions that have been on the chat to make sure that we don't get moved too far from them.
Sounds good.
Paul and Jennifer have been logging those questions, so we'll go back up and make sure we can answer those.
So the first question that we've got is, what is approval required status funding milestone intended for?
That sounds like a milestone that was added,
Like a district
because that's not,
office?
that's not part of our standard set of milestones. It does not sound like.
Change request status funding, I'm calling them milestones there, but it's on that tab on the change request. It wasn't on your slide set, but it was added in there. It's between BCD required and plans required now.
Hang on, I'm gonna see if I can find it in RMS, so I know what we're talking about the same thing. So in the contract changes, where are you seeing the status funding?
So open any change request and then go to the status funding tab. And then line 1 is BCD required. Second one is approval required, then plans required. On your slide, it didn't have the approval required, and I think it's relatively new. I was wondering what the intent was behind that.
Yeah, so we do have some extra stuff that has been added. The slides may not have everything that's brand new because we do constantly do new releases. For the approval required, that could have been something that some districts do things a little bit different, and they need to have that checkbox there, and other districts do not.
Yeah, so approval of what? I'm trying to understand approval of what?
Approval required, that would probably be a district approval, but honestly, we would have to look into why that was put in there.
This is Omaha district. It was explained to me that had to do with customer approval, external approval, where that could be either a higher level, like, got to take it back to headquarters for approval, or maybe AFCEC or AXIM or IMCOM or some other higher level. We can't go down this path until we get some kind of permission that's not just internal, already committed permission.
That sounds about right. James, I'm going to borrow your screen for just a minute so that I can show everybody else what we're talking about so they know. Give me just a second while I pull it up. All right, y'all should be able to see my screen right now. I'm in a current change request under the status funding tab. The question that he's asking about is this checkbox right here, this approval required. So thank you for your input. Let's see here. Does that answer the question?
I guess it answers it. I guess I would just like to see more clarity on that, because it's not intuitive what that is. And I mean, if it's customer, that's fine. I think we just need to be identifying what that is, or approval of what. So.
Yeah, for that one, I believe that's district specific. We added that for districts that do have some kind of approval that is needed. So you would have to contact someone in your district to find out if that is being used in your district or not, and for what purpose.
Okay. Yeah, it just really is not intuitive what it is, and I get questions on it, and to be honest with you, I don't know how to advise people on it. So most times we just don't use it, and I think, if we want to say it's for customers and that's an enterprise checkbox, if you will, I think we need to maybe define that better, but I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next question is, how does page 2 of the BCD get populated, like block 25, for example? So let me run over to the BCD item. I'm going to have to change my share screen in just a second to make it smaller so y'all can actually see it when I share. This one, block 25. 5, Section 5, recoverable construction costs. Now, I do know that we are not able inside of RMS to update everything in the BCD item. It's something that's not been able to be done all the time. However, if you have a specific question, these guidelines for 25, I think that's just defaulted to put in there, but I'm not 100% sure. James, do you know how 25 is populated?
I find my mute button. Yeah, we'll have to actually take a look at the screens and see which edit box fills that. We could do that research later.
I think it's 24, 25, and 26. I can't find any data fields in there to input anything. So it would be very nice if we had that capability.
Yeah, that's something we can look into later.
But yeah,
Thanks
just
for
so you
pointing
guys
that out.
know, I've noticed that too since RMS 2.38 days. RMS never had the ability to fill out this completely. It was explained to me why long time ago, and of course I forgot, so I don't know. I just know it does not have the ability to fill this out completely. So that's something that Carrie, I don't know if you want that to be sent to the PMO, because we'll need to make sure to get concurrence from HQ on how to fill the rest of this out. But we'll work with the RMS PMO on that. But I do know that it's been this way for a long time. Why? I do not know.
Yeah, we can double check with headquarters just to see if there's anything specific. I mean, I don't know that it needs to necessarily go through CCB if it's already a form that exists and it's just we haven't been filling it in. If we need to fill it in, we just need to be able to fix it so that it does it. But we can talk about it offline. And like I said, headquarters is actually here with us this week, so I can ask them and if need be while they're here.
All right, another question that we had. Does that answer everybody's question? My apologies. No comment means yes. Okay, so the next question that we have is someone asked for an update on an estimate for a fix in the SF30. I'll look into that after the training and get back at you and let you know where that is sitting at. The next question, oh, we did talk about this. So the last question that I see in here is, can you go over the upcoming changes for how the SF30 will be generated from ACWS and get into RMS from ACWS? I just want to understand what's coming. Do we have that ability currently right now on the computers that we're currently sharing?
No, okay. Yeah, that's something that's in testing right now, and the screens are not released in RMS yet.
Yeah, I know it's undergoing testing. Gerald's working on that right now. So I think that while that's a great question, and I've been part of quite a few meetings where they're talking about that, it's not something that, one, we can talk about yet, and two, it's undergoing direct testing and setup at the moment. ACWS is Army Contract Writing System. It's the system that's going to be replacing PCF as well as other AIS systems, kind of putting everything into one place. CEFMS and RMS are going to be interfacing with ACWS because I think ACWS will be the system of record. Like Carrie said, one day. It's planned to in the future.
Right. All modifications will need to go through them. So they will be replacing PD squared as well. That's correct. Okay, so we can move forward again. All right, so into contractor claims and disputes. So the type of the claim, we can choose the potential REA, COD request or appeal. That pop-up comes down and should be filled out. This form should be filled out completely as possible.
James, you got to share your screen again.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Thanks for pointing that out. Jennifer had shared her screen there. There, can you see my screen now? All right, so part of the claim dispute is built upon all of this information that needs to be filled out as completely as possible. Whenever things go into litigation, they are dependent upon this information, so it becomes very important to put all of these things in there. We entered a bunch of milestone dates. There's also supporting documents so that you can add all sorts of documents, including documents that are already part of the contract. When the settlement of the REA claim is reached, which requires a modification, then you can click a final settlement requires contract modification button on the claim as well. a contract change is initiated and linked to the REA claim. Then the claims data will transfer to the Contract Changes submodule Disputes Claims tab, where the change request is entered. Then the reports for claims. You can find that in the contract reports. It's the same as what was in RMS 238. The schedules is the next area on the financial items. In the RMS menu, we have the activities schedule, the milestone schedule, placement schedule, and features schedule. So we're skipping the QA, QC, and submittals into the schedules area. The NAS activity schedule is used to keep track of the actual scheduled start-finish dates from the contractor. This is that SDEF import that we were talking about before. There's a standard format which is detailed in a document ER1-1-11.pdf. If you would like a copy of that, we can provide that. It lays out the SDEF format, which any scheduling software could export to and technically should be importable into the contract. Currently, Oracle Primavera is the only one that has been used widely. There have been some Microsoft project contracts in the past, but no one that I know of right now is using that. The core can switch to a manual schedule, CAN schedule or NAS schedule whenever is required by the contract. The NAS activity schedule is critical for the actual start and finish dates. In fact, it can be set in the contract setup where the NAS schedule is required, and the daily report dates, start-finish dates need to match if you need that level of control. The import SDEF schedule into RMS 3.0 is under import-export module, and after the import of the SDEF schedule into RMS, the contractor can assure that there are no variances between the sum of activities and CLIN amounts and between the contract amount and sum of all activities. So all of this balancing can be done, which helps the contractor with their pay requests. And the government also can review these, making sure everything is in balance. They can actually approve the NAS schedule in RMS whenever there are any changes that occur. That way everything can be controlled and made sure to meet all the specifications for the contract. So this is a screenshot of an activity schedule, just a real quick little one with 3 little activities with scheduled start and finish dates, actual start, actual finish. A manual schedule, the contractor will manually enter these pay activities under the Finances Pay Activities submodule, and they can enter the start finish dates under this schedule activity schedule, and enter the actual start and finish dates in the QC daily reports, which is where they are typically entered. And by using the blue tiles along the top of the data grid, you can quickly view the activities, all activities, those not started, that are in progress, or not finished and finished. And the milestone schedule is composed of the standard set of system milestones, construction milestones. Again, the blue boxes at the top will allow you to select certain milestones that you want to view. Some contracts have a lot of milestones. These are composed of district milestones, office milestones, which are applied to all contracts within the offices, or contract milestones, which are specific for this particular contract. There's a set of system milestones that controls the states of the contract. For example, you must have notice to proceed in order for the contractor to start working on the contract, an actual notice to proceed, and you also need an actual award date in order to move the contract from a future contract into an active contract. The milestone schedule was taken out of the administration module and moved to the schedules module in RMS 3, and you can view the milestones by clicking any one of those blue tiles. Then the placement schedule submodule tab is where you can customize your projected placement curve. A monthly placement tab is where you can compare actual placement with the scheduled placement. The details of all the payments and progress in the contract will be brought in so that you can compare them to a scheduled placement. So actual versus projected placement tab allows you to set up projected schedule placement or you can copy schedule placement to a projected schedule placement or just manually add percentages. Actual versus baseline tab allows you to set up original projected placement and mid-year projected placement. And definable features of work are identified in the contractor's QC plan, and the contractor will perform controlled activities for each definable feature of work: preparatory, initial, follow-up inspections, QC tests, etc., that are used in the QC area. RMS calculates the start date, finish date for each definable feature of work by finding the first activity start date and last activity finish date linked to that definable feature of work. And the preparatory inspection and initial inspection scheduled and actual dates are manually entered by the contractor here. And it lets the QA know of upcoming preparatory, initial, and inspection meetings. This rolled up feature schedule makes an excellent schedule for monitoring the progress on a contract. Any questions? Okay, next we have the import-export area of RMS. This allows us to import and export various parts of the contract to facilitate a lot of the data that could be entered in other systems. And there's the position of the import-export. And these areas with the blue boxes are the areas of import and export. We can import from P2, particularly for a contract. I think that's under construction yet. Import QA deficiencies and import submittals. So you can import from an Excel spreadsheet for the submittals, so you don't have to enter those manually one by one. Import real property. Import data from another contract. That allows you to choose another contract if it mimics the one that you have. Maybe there's a lot of similarities and you want to copy various parts of the contract from another one. Then there's an import mods list, import SpecsIntact, and the SDEF schedule, and even a document package export option. This is automated, so there is a nightly download that happens from P2. So this is not needed at this point. In RMS 238, there was a...
So as James was saying, you know, a lot of the P2 data is imported at the start of the contract when you know, as you're setting up the contract. So there's no option to manually import the P2 data at this point in time, because there's a scheduled process that goes through, a batch process that goes through it and makes sure to import all the P2 data throughout the life of the contract. And as the screen states, it's usually within an hour of change, quite a bit less than that. But again, if you have any problems or there's something that's not quite looking right, you know, at this point, you know, you would go in and put in a ticket and we can look into it with your contract, specifically with your contract and P2. All right. So the next screen that we're going to look at is importation of submittals. This is where you're going to download a template. So you're going to click that little button at the middle there that says download template. It's going to take you to the rms.usa startme.mail website. You're going to download a template. You're going to usually it's you know, people that are using this, they've used it before, so they can just mass copy and paste in a whole bunch of submittal items with information in the submittal items. Sometimes you'll get the old submittal template out there that tells you to convert it to a CSV file. RMS3 operates with everything XLSX, so make sure to leave that in that template. It should have instructions that you move your mouse over once you get it downloaded. You fill all that out and then you import that in. If you have problems doing the importation, again, let us know with a support ticket. But one thing you want to pay really close attention to here is when you're doing the import of your submittal register, at the bottom down here, you'll see the import mode. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse moving, probably not, but there's two options: overwrite and merge with existing submittals. There's a fair number of tickets where people, they leave it, it defaults to overwrite. So be very careful when you default it to overwrite. Whatever you import in the Excel template, it's going to wipe out everything inside of RMS. But usually people that use the template, that's the intent, right? Everything comes from the template, you import it, boom, done. So keep an eye on that. And again, remember there's old templates out there that reference CSV and whatnot. You want to use XLSX. Okay. There's an option to copy data from another contract. When you create a new contract in RMS, we'll be doing a training in the future on that. You have the option of importing a whole bunch of data in from another contract. So we have test databases that we use here at the RMS Center to kind of play around with the contracts, do training and kind of make some of these screens. So what we do is we often create a contract that we set up perfectly, and then we use these options to mirror out those contracts to let other people play around with the contract, mess it up, and then you can delete it later if you need to, or archive it or whatever. So this basically imports a whatever set of data that you want from another contract into this contract. All right. Okay, this is the export mod list. You can either export to file or copy it to a clipboard. This basically simply takes the mod list. It'll include existing and future mods and pop them out into a file. All right. And this is the SpecsIntact importation area. So basically here, you're going to take a SpecsIntact file. If I remember correctly, it's like a Navy number something .text file. You take that file, you add it here, and you can import it into RMS. RMS will have a history of what's been imported. So over time, you can look at it and see what's changed or keep track of what's been imported. All right. Now we're going to go on to the Closeout tab, and I can't see anything on my screen. So if there's questions, let me know. We'll get to them later if we don't get to them right now. But the real property area has undergone quite a few changes recently because of some CRQs coming down from the CCB. So we'll be covering a little bit of that here. But basically, we're talking about the closeout area. So inside of RMS, when you're inside of a contract, you've got those modules in the middle there. You click on those and you can get to the submodules. So closeout is when the contract's at the end. So basically, we're talking about the real property screens, the DD 1354, the 1149s. There's the CPARs module and warranty tracking. And these areas are undergoing significant change as we speak because one of the CRQs that we got involves the contractor doing part of the real property, I guess you could say, data entry. So this is what the real property looks like. These basically for military construction contracts. It's required that we use this DD 1354 form. We're not really going over contractor mode, but just letting you guys know that the contractor can go in here and fill out a lot of this information. Some of this information is probably a bit more accurate, and it's continuing to change as time goes on. But the contractor can fill out the interim 1354 and submit that to the government. The government can accept it and use it to assist in the real property 1354 official document. So this is the form that we use to add real property items. Basically consists of land and capital improvements. Anything can be attached to this, such as parking lots, electrical systems, whatnot. Again, contractors can go in here and add real property items to assist in filling this out. Anything that the contractor adds to this, of course, will need to be verified by the COR. So that's when we were designing the contractor portion of this, it became real apparent that this needs to be double, triple checked. It can't just be something that gets sent off because it will get kicked back and questions asked. All right, up on the top right-hand corner, like a lot of modules in RMS, you guys probably already know, there's usually a way to run the report before you generate it. So there's the DD 1354 up at the top right-hand corner. You click that, that'll do a draft 1354. It's not the final one. I know there's a CRQ in the works to have that point to the official document once it's done. So that's something that we'll be working on in the future. But 1354, usually you've got your draft, you got your interim, and then you got your final. So of course the final is the one that goes off. All right, these are where you're going to add your deficiencies. Let's see here. That is a good question, Robert. I do not know the answer to that. Hopefully somebody does. Anyway, so these are basically where you import the known deficiencies. You pop that information in here. You can add these in. These are where you enter in the remarks. Here, some of the dollar amounts at the end does a bit of math to come up with the total project costs. Also note at the bottom, you've got the 1354 document package. So anything that needs to be added to this item that can be related can be added as well. I believe the contractor's got one on their side as well. Let's see here. Very good. All right, and a lot of these areas sometimes require coordination with other personnel to complete out these modules. I would say that out of all the modules in RMS, these are probably the not as popular used modules. So, but it is something that headquarters requires, and we're working on streamlining these modules to assist with completing them. So, for example, the contractor being able to edit them and whatnot. Also, you can run the reports if you go to contract reports and then either type in search, you can type in the 1354 or whatnot on the right-hand side, or you can just go to the closeout sub collection on the report menu, and that will bring up the closeout reports that can be printed out. All right, so transfer property is property that has changed hands from the contractor to the government, back and forth. This is government furnished property. I guess it should be to the government, to the contractor, and then back to the government. So basically, this will have a history of what's gone back and forth, where it's been shipped to and from. When you're entering this information out, just fill out the header, the shipping information, transfer property tab. The DD1149 should be prepared by the government. A lot of these forms, when we were looking through what the contractor could do versus what the government could do, a lot of it was pretty much government only. So we're in communication with that as well. The important part of the bottom portion of the screen is that as you continue to, there's two tabs, right? There's the header tab and the transfer property tab. As this data is entered and filled out, it creates a history of what's going on. So later on, 5-10 years down the road, when somebody's looking at this contract, they have a history of where this piece of equipment, whether it be a truck, a tractor, a crane, whatever, goes and what has been done to it. And yes. All right, I think we're good on the questions so far, so I'll keep going. All right, so CPAR evaluations. Some of you might remember that back in the 2.38 days, RMS actually interfaced with CPARs and would upload evaluations to CPARs. Right now, as far as I know, that doesn't happen. There's no connection between RMS and CPARs with RMS 3.0, but RMS can be used as a form of record for information throughout the contract. So contractor information can come in here and whatnot. But as far as I know, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, RMS does not communicate with CPARs anymore. So, all right. This is the warranty tracking area. This got a significant update from 2.38. I guess you'd say one of the most requested areas were to have different months of inspection. So you can check these on or off depending on how your contract utilizes these. So if you don't do any 9-month inspections, you can uncheck that box and it won't give you a document package for that area. But simply, it's just a document package where you can dump files that are related to warranty of whatever item that you are warranting on the job site or for the contract. So and again, these document packages, you can add more than one document package per item. So, for example, as things go, as the contract progresses, you can add these as time goes on. All right, this is an example of a bigger example of what a warranty tracking information screen looks like. Of course, we don't have any document packages on this screen, but usually you'd go in and add those. You can use Windows Explorer to drag and drop as many files as you want. Again, document packages, I'm sure everyone knows by now, 250 megabytes per attachment. It's limited on the per attachment size, so you can have dozens of 250 megabyte attachments, but do realize the more you add, it can slow down the export process. Document packages, by the way, when they get completed, they get sent off to PCF. So, all right. Any questions on the closeout area? I know that we've had quite a few people asking questions in the typing, or in the chat area. So we're gonna catch up on that real quick. Give me a second to do that.
Yeah, we have a couple. I can read them out to you. I think I copied all. So the first one that has not been answered. S&A gets spread over all the price lines. How does P&D get allocated?
That is a very good question. James, would you happen to know the answer to that?
Yeah, there's a particular formula and way that is calculated. We can get together with you later about that. The screenshot up above I posted actually includes the S&A. You can either apply it to DDC to all real property. And I know that the formula there is a little complex, and also the report is reporting it based upon what you put here. So I do not have all of that on the top of my head, though.
Okay, so the next one. Sure, I get all these answers in. On the real property item screen, has it been brought up to have a default setting for type of construction, sustainability code, funding sources, etc.? Real property item.
Also a good question. I do not know the answer to.
I'm looking in RMS right now. So he wants to know if there is a default setting for the type of construction. No, there is not. Sustainability code. No, there is not. And funding source. No, there is not. So there's no default for any of those ones. Okay. Is the 1354 needed for the PA hospital, and what else can be used? I'm going to say that's a policy question. Can be used for, yes, as to whether or not it should be used or is being used. You would have to check with your district to find out. And the other ones have been answered, so we'll get those posted.
Just to answer your question, we do have two implementations coming out in the next release of RMS. One is for the multiple checkboxes that you were talking about, and the ability to do the item resequencing, the real property item sequencing, where you can drag and drop those and order those as, how you want. So that will come out in the next release of RMS, which is undergoing UAT testing as we speak. And I think there was a comment too that CPARs needs to be updated to CCAS or something like that. Just an FYI. So we're aware of that. Any other questions? We're at the end of the slideshow, so there's no more slides. So any questions that you would like covered, what I'll do is I'll stop sharing. Speed up there. Oh, there we go. All right. So RMS closeout, final payment, ENG93. RMS no longer prompts the user to attach the final ENG93 signed by the contractor, which is done outside of RMS to send to CFMS. Will this be fixed? The action occurs specifically when the user clicks on send payments to CFMS. So I can tell you this, that area is getting a CRQ. When I say CRQ, that's a change request from the CCB. And that's going to involve allowing the contractor to sign the ENG93. So as you guys know, RMS3 used to just send up the ENG93 without a signature to CFMS, right? Recently, we had a CRQ to allow the signed ENG93 to be sent up to CFMS, right? And now we've got another CRQ to allow the contractor to sign the ENG93. So that is undergoing work. The next release will have the process where we have the contractor have the ability to sign the ENG 93, then the government signs it, then it goes off to CEFMS. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of a change in that area. Is the processes for that area are going to be changed. We are planning on doing documentation on that so that when it comes out, you'll be prepared for that, just so you guys know. Yeah, we'll hold a brown bag on that as well. As far as I know, it only has 3 signatures. It has the contractor, the preparer, and then the ACO. I have not seen anything about a KO signature, so that's news to me. Which means it's either got to get to the CCB or around that area. But I haven't seen anything about a KO yet. But just so you guys know, we don't see all the CRQs until they come down from the CCB. So I do know that we've had quite a bit of interesting feedback from districts, because some districts, it was during I think our last brown bag where we were talking about how to receive an invoice from the contractor. Some districts said the people signing on the ENG 93 side were the same person for both signatures. Some districts did it that way. Of course, headquarters was saying, it was designed so that you have someone else look at it. So you don't really want the same person signing, but some districts do it that way. So that was quite interesting seeing that from our perspective. As far as I know, I believe it's being programmed in RMS to be optional. So when you go inside of RMS 3, that checkbox that says ENG 93 complete and it generates the ENG 93, there's going to be a checkbox next to that says require contractor signature. You can leave that off and just have the contractor sign it, or my bad, just have the government sign it, and that'll be okay. So as far as I know, it's optional for the contractor. The checkbox for that will be right next to the ENG 93 checkbox on that last tab on the progress payment. So the webinars, for example, the brown bags, this current training, usually we try to get those up within 5 to 7 days after they are trained or after they occur. We have to go through, and in accordance with USA's privacy policies, we have to gray out some areas and whatnot. So that has to get approved. Once we do that, we put it up on our YouTube site. So you go to RMS, you go to YouTube, type in RMS support channel, or RMS support center, I'm sorry, and there you'll see a collection for either the training videos, the webinars, and I forget what the other one was, but you can go there and we plan on putting it there. We also plan on putting the links to the latest webinars on our rms.usa.me.mil website. So you can keep an eye out there as well. If I'd keep an eye out there, as well as the RMS support YouTube channel as well. Yep.
I posted a link into the chat for the YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and click on that, and it'll send you straight to the YouTube, and you can look at all the videos that we have posted on there.
Yeah, just like Jennifer said, we're making sure to record everything that's in the chat so we can address it when we get the final slides out, as what the questions and answers. But yes, I do know the final is special, right? The final payment. So that's that. We'll make sure to cover that in our brown bag, our next brown bag. All right. I do know, just a statement to keep the chat going along. Our contract does have us doing, I think it's 4 videos a month on the YouTube channel. So keep an eye on that YouTube channel. That's a great place for your contractors to go, as well as to be kind of notified of changes to RMS. So this contract, any change that we do, we're supposed to have a YouTube video out there kind of explaining it, showing, hey, here's what the change was, here's what you can expect. So definitely keep an eye on the release notes, as well as the YouTube channel, because that has a lot of great information of, instead of going into RMS and all of a sudden, hey, what this doesn't look right. What happened? So, and we're also working on setting up a DLL list to notify everyone when all these changes happen as well. So we've been working with CEIT on that, getting something acceptable so that we can keep everyone notified. So,
along the lines of the contractor training, I know someone asked if we did webinars for the contractor training. We do not at this time, but we do have a lot of videos that are geared directly for contractors on our YouTube site. So if you have any contractor that needs to know how to do something, you can always send them there. There is a specific playlist for contractors specifically. If there is any topics that you would like to see in these monthly videos that we produce, if you submit a support ticket stating that, can we get a video for such and such? We'll put it in our list, and depending on priorities and requests, the more requests we get, the more likely it'll come out sooner. Yeah, Jamie, that will come up in recent release. It's not currently ready for users. Okay. I think we got everything.
Yep. Just another note as well. Make sure you keep suggestions going to the CCB because they take every vote, and a lot of great changes are coming down the pipeline. So keep your feedback coming. It's helping everyone. So really appreciate it.
How do I explain sending a payment to CEFMS not fully signed? Are you referring to your district is requiring the contractor to sign the ENG 93? Is that correct? Or are you just talking about the government signing it? Oh, the contractor. If your district is requiring it, I would suggest you send the ENG 93 to the contractor first, have them send it back to you, and then before you send it to CEFMS, upload it with the contractor signature into RMS, and then choose send to CEFMS.
Yeah, because it looks like this is something they're enforcing recently, right? Because up until recently, RMS always sent the unsigned ENG 93 off to CEFMS. It was only until I think a handful of releases ago that we had the ability to send a signed only government ENG 93 off to CEFMS, and then we got a quick, you got to have the contractor sign it as well. So we're implementing these as fast as we can. But yeah, that does seem like there's changes coming down the pipeline quite a bit faster than they have before. But RMS hasn't sent a signed ENG 93 off to CEFMS up until very recently for the government only. But yeah, we're undergoing UAT testing, so we hope that gets out real quick. That'll solve your problem. But like Jennifer said, right now, the only way to do it is check the ENG 93 complete, export out that generated ENG 93, send that off to the contractor via email or something, have them sign it digitally, send it back to you. You import it into the document package, and then continue it on that way, and that'll get sent off to. Then you can mark that as the manually signed ENG 93, right, inside of the document package, and then that'll get sent off. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so yes, so the process that I'm talking about, we've been doing for a while, and I believe in RMS, and I don't know if this is across USACE, but every time you would click for the final payment specifically, send payment to CEFMS, then it would prompt you to send, and it says attached, signed, or it requires, or something requires a fully signed payment, which usually was the contractor and the government. So I do exactly what you said. I create the payment, I export it, have the contractor sign it, have the ACO or COR sign as the approver, and then normally before I click the feature where you send payment to CEFMS in RMS, then it would prompt me with another window. And then that's where I would attach the contractor signature as well as the ACO COR signature. And then that would be sent to CEFMS. So that change just happened, I think, last week, because I wasn't able to do it on Friday. So that's what I'm saying. It's something that I've been doing for the past so many years, 5 years. But now that has changed where I can't attach anything. So that's been the change over.
Yeah, I'm guessing that part was my guess was part of the CRQ that didn't get fully out. So one of the change requests from the CCB had to do with changing how the ENG 93 was signed, right? So we did two parts on that. The first part was, okay, we're going to allow the government to sign it. So that was the first part that got out. And my guess is that may have changed how the final payment was done. And that, from what it sounds like, that's unintentional. But we'll take an action and we'll look into that, because that should still be operating the same way. Because the only thing that we've changed so far is the government going in and signing the ENG 93, right? So if you're doing a final payment and it's not asking what it used to, that's not a good thing. That's something that if I was you, I'd be like, all right, we're putting in a ticket at the RMS support center. Hey, why is this not doing what it should? But I also would I'd also say, all right, that's something that we need to look into, that we'll look into it to make sure. But at the same time, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if some of that area is changing due to that CRQ, but it still sounds like a bug. So I'll just go on record saying, yeah, we'll look into that and we'll get back to you on that, because that does not sound intentional at all.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So when it did happen to me on Friday, so just to explain the feature, when I get to the payment and I send payment, if the other
Mhm.
window doesn't prompt, I don't have an option to stop that. So as of Friday, I had sent that payment without the contractor's signature, just has the government one. So I don't know if I'm going to have to explain that later when the KO gets into CFMS. But that's the thing, is that there's no feature to stop it once you click it. So I don't know if that feature is working or not working. And I did submit an email because I don't have access to the online support. My default is Internet Explorer and it doesn't allow me to do it online. So I sent an email with that same issue on Friday, but I haven't received a response.
Jamie, I'll go ahead and send you a link for the support tickets, but if ever you can't submit a support ticket, you can always give us a call and we can help you submit a excuse me. We can help you submit a support ticket on the phone if that happens. But I will post a link in the chat where you can copy that link and paste it into a different internet browser so that way you can actually get to the right location. And I'll do an @ mention to you so that way you can actually see that. It'll take me just a second to grab that though.
Okay, perfect. And then I will resend that email. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. The question is there a time frame for when RMS will be able to export to CFMS with unit quantities instead of just dollars?
Yes.
There's nothing in place yet for that.
Okay.
And I have no projection. That has to be scheduled.
Okay. So Dallas, Carrie, I'm not sure if that's something that will be coming down in the near future or if that needs to go to the CCB. I'm not quite sure.
So I know they talked about that with the ACWS effort.
Right.
So if we could get that included.
I think that just about does it.
All right. Well, I'll just say, again, this is Carrie in Huntsville. Again, thank you all for joining. And also, this training has been recorded and it will be posted to the RMS website in a few days. We need to just double check it, make sure there's no information on there that we shouldn't be sharing online. So we'll scrub it and then get it posted. Again, the slides are already posted on the RMS PMO SharePoint. The link is in the chat. The CCB members are also posted on the PMO SharePoint site. I posted a link directly to that spreadsheet in the chat as well. If you have a suggestion for an enhancement, please contact the CCB lead for your district, and then they will input the request for CCB. Other than that, I just appreciate your time and again, check the RMS website and the SharePoint for opportunities on upcoming training sessions. Thank y'all.